I'm not saying that we sat together in a circle and manifested some trauma. That's not that what this is. This is how it's showing up. Low self-esteem, lack of boundaries, fear of disappointing others. That's that people-pleasing aspect. Withholding emotions, like withdrawing. That's that instead of the fight, you're running away from your problems, you're withdrawing. Fear of abandonment, possessive. I was with Miss Karen and she was talking about, or somebody was talking about how the friend was possessive. They had this clingy, anxious attachment. And we do that in relationships. And then we hashtag and say toxic. Let's not do that. Let's not do that anymore. Or we think that this person is really in love with us. They're so possessive of us. They love us. They don't want to let us go. Red flag. Feeling overwhelmed in public. Avoiding people. And I get it. Some people need to be avoided. I get that. But this is where it really affects you in a way that you can't get stuff done. And then prone to addiction. These are just some of the archetypes. Once again, I wanted to put all that I can in this slide to be an impact and information. You could take a picture of this and look into this. These are the child archetypes. They're online, like a bunch of different ones that kind of like change, but these are some by, is it Jungian? I don't know, I feel like I should know that. So then why? What's the point of healing the inner child? Anybody want to answer that? What would be the point? Peace. Sorry, thought I was doing something with this mic. Peace. Breaking the cycle. Anybody else? We have to. Yeah, it's gonna keep getting passed down and passed down. Imagine passing peace. Is it me? Is that? Oh. Okay. Well, I was trying to repeat it so that I'm gonna do better. So yeah, to not pass it to our children, not repeat it. Yes, ma'am. This one right here? Yeah. And you've seen this in your family. Who's the overachiever? It's usually the first kid. It's usually the first kid. You got the middle kid, life of the party. I don't know if this is true. I'm just saying what I think it is. And then I don't know where the wild person is, but you know, that's that third child or the second. I don't know. It's my second one. All right. So to not repeat this, to live our lives optimally. We all want to be happy, to forgive, to be creative, to be compassionate, to grow, evolve, to get what we really deserve. We are deserving, we are worthy of living a peaceful and prosperous life. And to be confident as a parent and to really love yourself. All right, so we're gonna get into these inner child phases now. It seems like it's part of Erikson stuff if you're into psychology and you're into Erikson. I can't remember all those things and I'm glad this isn't a test. But for what I'm talking about today, this is the phases. This is a timeline of stuff that goes down in this time is affecting you now in a negative way. I put womb with a question mark. I don't know how many people believe in this, but there is some evidence out there. Well, one probably is epigenetics, you know, but there's trauma in the womb. There's trauma before you even got here. Didn't I just say you had a strike against you? Some people have 2 strikes against them, right? That's in the womb. Then you have things that go on the infant time. You have things that go on during the toddler time, young child, grade school, preteen, teen, and young adult. I'm sure that things go further on, right? But for what we're talking about today, inner child stuff, this stuff happens around this time. So if you look at this timeline now, you can set up a timeline for yourself and think about what things happen around that time. And typically you could break it down to where if you're feeling possessive and super clingy, well, as an infant, nobody Google-eyed you. They put you in that little bouncer thing. They let you bounce around and they put Sesame Street on and they called it a day. This is not a judgment. This is an observation. My call to action is to change. Then you got toddler. Don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't sit there. Don't, they don't trust themselves. They don't know how to make decisions. You didn't allow that. Not you. I'm not talking about you. Y'all would never. All right. So part of the reparenting process is, of course, like accepting and acknowledging it. Sorry. And think about what anger is. I want everybody to look up a feelings wheel. They're all over the internet streets. And on those feelings wheel, I want you to get in touch with those feelings, because in order to tame your feelings, you have to name your feelings. And with this, and with reparenting, what we're doing is we're giving ourselves what our parents didn't give us. I'm not saying you have the worst parents in the world. They don't know. They didn't know. They only gave you what they had. So then when we reparent ourselves, think about anger. What is anger? An unmet need. What is sadness? An unmet need. What is depletion and depression? An unmet need. Let's get into it. Let's connect. Let's see what our unmet needs were. That's why we act in the way we act in. Our needs weren't met. And guess what we're doing? Still not meeting them. Allowing people in our life to pull energy out of us. So we're going to change that, because in order to, and I wish this is something, see, I didn't know that. I was a social worker all my life and I knew nothing until I had kids. I knew nothing. I still don't know much, but I knew nothing about reparenting myself, because had I known, I thought I was already doing the work, to be honest. I thought I was good. Okay. I really thought I was like, okay, yeah, I'm having a baby. I'm gonna make sure I put all the good energy into my body. And then they started walking and talking. I was triggered. You need to sit down somewhere. A child should be seen and not heard. So all those things start coming up for me. And I'm like, I get it. You should not be seen right now or heard. You need to go. So I don't want to parent that way, because I've seen what it could do, connecting the dots. All right. So some of the healing modalities that are used, and there are so many. There are so many. Going back, I'm a therapist. I'm a holistic therapist. I look at the whole person. I look at everything, all that I can see. But even beyond that, there's an energy that goes into it. This is my passion. This is my purpose. There's an energy. So I'm going to know whether you want to talk to me or not. But there are some healing modalities. And the meditation that we did, if you add the senses, right? So let's hope I remember them today. But what's one thing that I see? Breathing. What's one thing that I can feel? Breathing. What's something that I can smell? This is to bring you back to your present moment, to gather your nervous system. You are out of line. So that's what the mindfulness meditation is. Ants, automatic negative thoughts. I call these disempowering beliefs and empowering beliefs. These are beliefs that if I say disempower, it's just negative. It's not serving you. It's not supportive to you. Body sensation. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I should know this. I didn't read the whole book. It's a little nerdy, but I do use it as a reference, and it's a great read. And he talks about, like, we store these emotions in our body. So one of the things I try to get people to understand when we're doing our reparenting, our inner child work, when your kid is stressing you out, where do you feel that in your body? When your partner left his sock right next to the dirty clothes hamper, where do you feel that in your body? Your body holds on to this and it's never released. We don't allow it to release. We don't know. Nobody ever said, hey, bro, look sad over there. I think you should release that. I think you should cry. No, it was, you need to go cry somewhere else. Nobody want to hear that. Nobody want to hear that. And frankly, I get it. But we're not doing that anymore. And Miss Karen talked about this next in the last one is reactor versus responder. Start noticing this as you reparent yourself. because you're reparenting yourself to bring peace into your life, but to also break that generational curse that you could possibly pass on to your children. And it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going. So are you a reactor? I'm gonna give you an example. I step on a Lego. I'm feeling real reactive because it hurts. And I could be like, hey, it hurts. I told y'all to pick up these Legos. How many times I say y'all pick up these Legos? Y'all don't hear, y'all don't understand, y'all don't know what I'm saying, you can't comprehend, right? We go through all that. All that, where we're so reactive. And honestly, if you talk to me like that, I ain't picking up no Legos. I'm gonna catch my whooping because I'm not picking up no Legos, okay? Or I could be a responder. Hey y'all, I just stepped on a Lego, it really hurt my foot. Would y'all mind picking these up? I wanna protect my body, and I want you to protect your body. Now, I'm not saying they're gonna listen, but I didn't traumatize them. I didn't traumatize them. And for the most part, they will comply and be cooperative. It's how we talk to each other. But remember, we don't know, because if our parents talk to us a certain way, all we're doing is trickling that down the system, and we're just talking to each other that way because we think it's normal and we think that it's okay, and we know that it's not okay. So this is a real big one for me, is catching yourself when you're reactive, noticing where you feel that in your body, and then being able to take the opportunity to learn how to release that. Journaling, I mentioned journaling. I love journaling. And tapping is a emotional freedom technique. And I really love tapping a lot because it's like, I want to be free from my negative emotions. And that's what it does, kind of, something like that. It's deeper than that. Yes. Yeah, I can model tapping. Actually, I did a workshop last week on it virtually. So it's called, there are several others, but this is one called Emotional Freedom Technique, and you tap. There are meridians all over your body. I will not go down the meridian rabbit hole, but we're tapping on them to allow them to run freely, express themselves through our body so they're not clogged up. Going back to the nervous system, it's always the nervous system. It's always brain health to me. And then I connect that with spirit. So that's tapping. It's all online. The tappingsolution.com is the bomb. It's like 3 siblings doing a business together, which I think is really cute. And I'm like manifesting through them. Like, I hope my kids get along like that. CBT, popular cognitive behavioral therapy, that's changing your thoughts, right? It's changing your thoughts, but what I like to add in there is putting the sensation in there. It's not your thoughts, right? You have like 6,000 thoughts a day. It's not the thoughts, it's the emotion that's attached to the thought. If we can change, you're gonna have the thought. I'm gonna have the thought. I'm gonna remember what you did for me. But that emotion is not gonna be attached there anymore. I'm not gonna be as charged. So what does that stand for? I'm sorry. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, you're welcome. So the body, just thinking about that body sensation, and I really want y'all to leave with this. I really want y'all to start noticing this stuff in your body, because that's going to tell you where you really need your healing at when it comes to a somatic way. And somatic meaning body, like releasing things from your body, loving on yourself. Mine is in my face. I don't know if you can tell already, but like the nervousness goes in my face and my shoulders. There are certain things that I do with my face and my shoulders to nourish my nervous system. So, and that goes the movement. So we already did this one, but I just put it up there so you can take a picture. These are some of the ways we breathe. The 4-4 breathing is 4-4-4 breathing is breathe, inhale 4 seconds, pause 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds. Hey, if you advance, you can hit that 7-second pause, hold it for a little bit longer. And then hear, smell, taste, see, touch. So some of the disempowering beliefs, this is something that I teach everybody. There's always a belief that you have about yourself that is not serving you, that you are attached to, that has emotional charge to it. It's always a couple. But I like to condense it to one, because I like to focus on one problem at a time. I don't need a reminder of all the disempowering beliefs that I have. But these are some. The one I hear the most when it comes to parenting is I'm not enough. I'm not enough. If you want to, just to release some of these thoughts, raise your hand if you've ever felt like you're not worthy. Raise your hand if you've ever felt powerless. too emotional. You doing too much. You too much. You extra. One of the other disempowering beliefs that people don't really realize is I'm better than others. I could do no wrong. Is it giving narcissist? I'm not important. That's one that came up for me once I became a parent. When I became a parent, I became a parent. I didn't go to work. I was like, I'm staying home with this kid. I don't know what to do with this baby. I was like, I'm not important anymore. All I'm doing is sitting here like feeding the baby all day, right? So I felt that in my stomach. So I started rubbing on my stomach and loving on my stomach. And I was like, well, maybe this is some wound trauma, all that. But that's just one that I felt connected to. I'm not deserving. Sometimes we do some things. Let's blame our childhood a little bit. Sometimes we do some things, but then we don't let go of that. We don't forgive ourselves. We don't have compassion for ourselves. We don't love ourselves. And then, well, we're not deserving. I'm not deserving enough to have an optimal life. I'm not deserving of a peaceful life. So we think about forgiving others, it's forgiving yourself too. And then guilty. I used to feel guilty when I left those kids. Now I feel good. I feel good. Where do I feel it in my body? All over. Okay, so then some of the empowering beliefs, well, we'll just reverse them. How many people, by raising hands, how many people feel like they're enough? Sometimes. Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm worthy. Sometimes. See, let me tell y'all something. Y'all don't mind raising y'all hands on some disempowering beliefs, but when I'm trying to empower you on today, you don't even want to raise your hand. No, I'm powerful. Raise your hand if you, sometimes. No. I'm emotionally intelligent. I'm in the process of, that's all right. I'm okay with that. I am connected to others. I am important. It's okay if y'all didn't want to raise your hand. Thank you for your honesty and vulnerability and transparency. Responder versus reactor, I mentioned that. The way that I look at this, now I know that y'all are kind of recording, and for the record, this is just a visual answer, right? When I talk to people about being a responder versus being a reactor, I'm not saying all police officers are reactive, but it's giving very reactive. So I ask people, well, how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up as a reactive officer? Not all officers. Or do you want to be a responder? Are you here to be a firefighter? Let's put these fires out. Sometimes when I work with folks on visual, if they can really visualize, I'll be like, all right, them kids cutting up, put your suit on, suit up. Imagine that suit going on you. Imagine you putting your little firefighter suit. I don't know what it looked like. It might look good. You might be looking good in your suit. Put it on so that you show up as that person. Talked about journaling. I'm going to give an example of some journaling when we're talking about healing our inner child. Now, the wild thing is, I've been doing this work a long time. I've been journaling for a long time. And this is something that I used to do as a kid. I didn't have a mentor, I guess. So what I would do is I would dialogue with one of my ancestors. I don't know who that lady is, but Saving Grace. And I would just write to her. And the way that I would write is it would be like a freestyle. I would write and I would let's see if this is the next. Yeah. Well, think of a play. It'll have Ro, Auntie, Ro. Why don't I feel important, Auntie? Baby, that's that childhood trauma that you are still working on. You get in that yoga pose, you release that, you affirm yourself, you acknowledge that feeling, blah, 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 right? That's ancestor. I don't know if it's me talking to me. It could be my ancestors. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is that I'm releasing things and I'm getting answers. I created my own mentor. So this is another way to dialogue with your inner child. So you will use your dominant hand, obviously, so it's looking good unless your handwriting is illegible. And you would ask a question, and then you would use your non-dominant hand to answer, like a child. We're gonna tap into childishness. We're going to get back into feeling like a child. And I guess I would kind of flip this around in reality. And as the child, I would just write something. Why you whoop me? Why couldn't I cry? So if I guess, do we have time? Does anybody want to ask a question and then see if they can come up with an answer? Come on. Do I give her the mic? So you're going to be the child. You're going to ask the childhood question like a child.
What is grown folk business? Do I answer?
And you answer as
Grown
you
folk
answer.
business. No, the grown folks business. That's something that I heard a lot. It's my mom right there.
So then you would answer that. Answer back as an adult.
It's a conversation between adults and it's not meant for you to hear.
So you prefer to have an explanation as to why you couldn't be a part of that conversation.
Yes. That way I know how to move forward.
Yeah.
Mom said, don't do
And we
this
don't-
because that.
And we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Don't ask questions. Don't question me.
Don't question you and don't question God. I got that all the time.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got that. Don't question me. I said not what I said because it's kind of new. Do as you're told. Obedient. Right. And so even now, like when I'll get to it when we talk about conscious parenting, my son is a builder. He's some kind of engineer or something. I don't know. But guess what? Homeboy love plugs and outlets. I don't want to take that from him. I don't want him to get electrocuted either, but I don't want to take that from him. But one of the things I do is I'm like, hey, you unplug that. You'll unplug all the lights in here. No one will be able to talk. We would mess up some equipment. It'll put us back. I gave him an explanation. Once again, I'm not saying he's gonna be cooperative, but I gave him an explanation instead of like saying, go ahead, go on now, leave it alone. So now he knows like, oh, well, there's some consequences that are gonna happen. Now, to be honest, if somebody told me that, I'd be a little excited and start unplugging stuff. But honestly, it works.
So mine is, Mom, why am I being bullied so much? My mom's response, they talked about Jesus and you know better than he is.
Hello. And those are questions that you can ask as a child and answer yourself back. It could be your mother. It could be your grandmother. It could be whoever, but it will be whatever it is that you actually want to hear. And thank you for saying that. And I want to make sure that I say that when we say like, I'm pretty or I'm smart or I'm intelligent, I'm important, and we don't really believe it, we just fucked that up for ourselves. We just messed up our belief. Mom, why was I being bullied? Why was I bullied? And then yeah.
Oh, it was, Mommy, why was I bullied? And the response was, they talked about Jesus Christ and you're no better than he is.
And I heard that a lot too. They talked about Jesus. And then I would be like, well, Jesus was doing stuff. He was turning water into wine, and it was all these things that look strange, right? So I want to be validated. And like there was something else that came up for you. That part, that's where you journal it. That's your dialogue that you have. And guess what? It hurts and we might cry. And that's a release. It's a detox for your eyes. I support crying. I love crying. When a client, I call them a participant. When a participant comes in and cry, I'm like, yes, way to release that shit. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Let it out. This is your chance to cry. Nobody can tell you go in a room, cry. So this is just an activity that I do with folks, and I do. You have one? Oh, thank you. Sorry.
I don't know if this is an inner dialogue, and I really hate public speaking, so I'm feeling everything rise inside of me. But I had a really great session with one of my therapists. We did EMDR virtually, and it was dealing with healing my inner child. And I found myself in my childhood room alone in the dark by myself. And I didn't really understand why I was in there or what was going on. And then he told me to start thinking about people that came in my life, not in my childhood, but in my life, that were supportive. And he told me to start building a chain. So I sat there continuing to do EMDR, and every time I was going through it, I was putting a new person in a circle around me until I finally broke down and cried during the session, because I realized that I felt really alone for a very long part of my life, and him helping me build this circle of people who appreciated me and loved me for who I was. And sorry, I'm getting really emotional again with it, but it was a huge experience for me to do that with him, and to realize that there was a lot of people in my life that maybe I didn't get when I was younger, but I built those relationships with what I had, and those people loved me no matter what, and they pulled me up, and they helped me get out of a dark room that I didn't know that I was in for 30 plus years. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. It wasn't really a dialogue, but
Well, it is a dialogue, and I really am grateful for you being vulnerable and actually feeling that in your body and releasing that. It's called a resource. What he's doing, what your therapist is doing, is adding a resource. I'm gonna tell you one thing about the human mind. We can trick it. And I could go down a whole rabbit hole of that, and how visualizations, how we can change things. And when you add a resource, whether it's real or fake, your brain don't know the difference. I've been saying I'm a billionaire for a long time. I might not have the resources, but I have the attitude. I'm only doing things that I love because I'm a billionaire. I have money. Right? I'm trying to get my brain to understand that this is a reality for me. So by adding those resources for yourself, whether they're real or fake, is a way to heal your inner child. And like I said, in EMDR, they call that resourcing. This is just one I did. And clearly I'm just a little country. I'd be like, hey, baby, I just wanted to let you know that I am grateful to have you in my life. Wouldn't it have been nice if our parents said that? Just once a week, right? And then I said, sometimes it doesn't seem that way. I love you. How are you, say, right? And this is like I said, an example, but it works. It does something. So here's some journal prompts. Now we're going to go back to remember that timeline that I showed y'all. And these are like, let's just say you're like, okay, in that timeline, I knew some stuff happened. I knew some stuff went down. I know that I witnessed something. I know that I had a traumatic birthing experience. So I think that everybody, and I know that I'm talking to people that have wombs right now, but if your womb could talk to you, what would your womb say? What would it say to you? We talked about the anxious attachment styles next door, and that clinginess and that fearful and that was maybe not dismissive, but avoidant. Well, dismissive, avoidant, right? What would your womb say? Sometimes we make poor choices in partners. And had we talked to our womb about it, we might have got some answers, but nobody ever said, talk to your womb. Ask your womb question.
Julie, I actually feel that my soul lives in my womb. When things are not right in my world, I get sick first in my womb first.
creation. We know what happens down here. Not that part, the part after that part. There's creation. Of course, you're connected. We're creators. So think about infant, right? There was a kid who had, he was a baby and he had the tube, something was going on. He had the tube down his throat. And now he had all these anxieties and all these just anxieties. Well, yeah, he had all these things going on, right? He doesn't know why he has all these issues and won't eat certain foods and all that. He don't like any food. He don't remember that. How you know? He was 3 months old. Somehow it's in his body. It's stuck there because there was no work done. So there are questions to ask when you were 3 months old and your mom told you that maybe you had a seizure or a heart murmur. I don't know. I'm just saying. How safe do you feel? Usually when we're not safe, once again, nobody was Google-eyeing us. I'm not saying that's for every situation, for the record. What are your thoughts of your parents? Do you feel safe with them? Are they a resource? Do you trust your body to tell you what it needs? Think about that. I'm crying. I'm 2 weeks old and I'm crying because I want something. I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm tired. I didn't get that need met because my parents let me cry it out. This is not to shame or judge anyone, but if you know better, you do better. If you sit there and let the baby cry it out, it's a possibility that your baby is going to get older and they're not going to get their needs met because they don't know how to, because they didn't get them met during that time. So toddler, and I put infant birth to 18 months. Once again, this is not Erickson stuff. This is this stuff. So toddler from 3 to 6, you ask yourself, and I do want you to take a picture of this. I want you to ask yourself these questions. You have a soul action today, this weekend, or whatever you're doing. Do some journaling. How do you respond when someone tells you no? Remember what I said? My son, he might be cooperative. I'm scared to tell him no. I don't want him to think that he has to be obedient. I don't want him to just listen to anybody. That's not safe. Describe your boundaries with yourself or others. This is toddler stuff. We blame our toddlerhood and then we fix it because now we're going to answer these questions and we are going to co-heal. We're going to release these things. We're going to figure it out. Young folks' life, 3 to 6 years. How self-critical are you? Remember during these years, these are these developmental, emotionally, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, don't do that, don't touch that. Why are you doing that, right? I'm criticizing my child in such a way that now they're critical of themselves. Don't write your number like that. God, my God, they're 4. It's going to be backwards. So that's the small stuff. There are way bigger issues and bigger fish to fry. But just think about how we speak to someone and now all of a sudden their voice is that voice. Critical.
Jim,
Mhm.
I want to know, so when I read the question, what were you told about your worth,
Mhm.
age 3 to 6? I mean, I actually only having some reaction inside of my body. I want to know, do parents actually talk to their 3 to 6-year-olds about their worth? And if anybody had that experience, what was that like? And I just feel like if someone would have had that conversation with me, I'm 50 now, life would have been totally different. I'm still having those conversations with myself about not being enough, not being worthy enough, and how my life would have been different if we would have talked about that at 3 to 6.
So the question would be, do you remember anything happening around 3 to 6 that still is feeding this thought that you are unworthy?
Absolutely.
Okay, you don't have to share that. And then you said you felt that in your body. Where do you feel that in your body?
I felt that immediately in my chest.
Okay.
Some anxious, heart racing.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what everybody's doing online. It looks like everybody's parenting perfectly. Gentle parents. Have you heard of them? That's not me. But everybody else is doing great. My thoughts are, I didn't have the tools. Nobody was like, hey girl, you are worthy. Let's work on our values today. No, that wasn't there. Now we did have character education in school. Maybe we learned something from that. So I don't know what other parents are doing, but for me in my house, we're talking about values right now. We're talking about our sacred body parts, and we can say no, and we don't have to walk into the room and speak to everybody. So me personally, yeah, I'm creating values. When you have a sense of value and you know what your values are, you know if you're in alignment with that. If you don't know your values and you falling off course, how you know you're off course? You don't know your values. You don't know nothing about yourself. So for me, yes, I think that it's important. It's vital to start teaching value and manners. We'll call them manners, but values at a young age. And there are some books out there for that. Hopefully I can remember the names. One is Why Character Matters. It's deeper than what I'm talking about. Beautiful book, Why Character Matters. But so 3 to 6, define what shame means to you. Shame comes up a lot around this time because once again, we keep shaming our children. Why you do that? That's a big one. Why you do that? Well, it looked fun, but instead they're like, oh, well, something must be wrong with me. I feel shame. Yeah. What were you told about your worth? Once again, I don't know that some parents are, but let's rule out that abuse of like, you ain't worth, well, actually, let's not. There are plenty of parents like, you ain't worth nothing. You back with her again? Oh, he see you acting like that, he ain't gonna want you no more. Right there are messages that we use. We have to connect the dots and make sure that, are we still using those messages? Are we still holding on to those messages? Where are we holding on those messages in our body? And how can we release them? How can we disconnect? How can we disconnect that emotion that's attached with that? Grade school, this is when you're really around your peers and stuff. So you start worrying, like, do you still worry about being accepted by people? These are your people pleasers. And by people pleasers, then you already know that there are some boundary things going on, lack of boundaries. What are your thoughts on your achievements? I'm not anti-school, but when I am, it's because of this achievement thing. How you do on a test. You are a number. You are only worthy if you have an A. All that comes from grade school. You can blame your teacher if you want right now. We'll release that in a little bit. And that's not every teacher. It's not every teacher. I was a school social worker. Once my kids are older, I'm going back. What are your thoughts? What were your parents like emotionally, social, and physically? Obviously, this affects us. If they were unavailable to you, your need did not get met. Now you're trying to meet it with other things, thus addictions. And I ain't just talking about substance use. Some of us are addicted to stress and busyness because that's where we find our worth and our productivity. We don't have to do that anymore. So yeah, that's my rant and rave about that. Young teen, in what areas are you comfortable and uncomfortable sexually? Do you think you need to use something to go to a social function? What areas of your body are you self-conscious about? These are things that you go through during that time. And then especially, and there was somebody had posted about this, and there was this bullying situation of the boy. See, I forgot all about this. The little boy told the girl, oh, that's why you flat chested. And that does something to people because it's like, well, it is flat. It doesn't look like other people. Now I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm going to cover it up. I don't want people to notice that. So, once again, we can go on and on about that, but that's just the last thing I've seen on social media. Using something to go to a social function, just think about that social anxiety part. I come up here talking to people, you know? I could have used something, right? Chose not to, but it's that way for me to feel comfortable. Liquid courage. I don't know, maybe there are other words for other things. That's the only one I can think of right now. And then the adolescent time, a little bit past high school, how do you define yourself? This is that time of the identity part. You're learning your identity. If you're allowed to, remember, if your parents didn't allow you to express yourself, you don't even know your identity. 80% of us in here probably don't know. We still working on it. I'm still working on it. I'm still building up my values, trying to figure out who I want to be. And what serves me. In what areas do you feel rebellious? I can tell you right now, if you haven't guessed it, quite a rebel. Why? I was grounded all the time. I couldn't go nowhere. You looked at me wrong. You rolled your eyes. You got a smart mouth. You grounded. Well, that's okay, because now it made me tap into my creativity. And now I'm doing slides for fun. What is unique about you? We see the popular kids. They're so unique. And then there's, just a few to the side, kind of lame, just a little bit nerdy. I did like debate, But then when you get older and you don't have that identity, then you don't feel unique. You don't feel important. You see where I'm going with this? We're connecting the dots. In what areas do you think you compromise your beliefs or identity? Sometimes we're sabotaging ourselves because the latter feels more comfortable. If your father was emotionally unavailable to you and you looking for a man, I'm gonna go get me an emotionally unavailable one because I'm comfortable. He's familiar. This is what's happening around that time. Yes, ma'am. Let's pardon me. We're gonna get you a mic.
Do you feel that our parents knew to talk to us about our identity? And do you feel that the parents knew to say, how are you feeling today? Or were they so wrapped up in work and racism and poverty and their own sense of accomplishments? Because again, I feel it was generational to where the roles were defined. There was no crossover. The dad didn't talk with the children. He was the breadwinner. That was mama's role to cook and clean, but she had to be a breadwinner too. So she was in the house and dad was outside the house working and doing the yard So I think that's the time in which we live. Do you feel that contributed to our lack of knowing ourselves now? Because I'm just now.
I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole because my Instagram name is Ro Rants and Raves. If you haven't already got that already, we can only do what we know to do, and we're taught to do. And even when we're taught to do, let's say we fall off a horse and we have a traumatic brain injury, shit's about to change. I have inflammation in my brain. So even though I had the best upbringing, it doesn't mean I'm going to carry along these things, right? So I'm only going to speak from some things that I was taught and some things that I know for the African-American, Afro-Indigenous people. We were homegrown, okay? What that means is that's a nice looking man right there, slave. That's a nice looking woman built. Let's breed them. Now, that's my daughter. You know what I'm gonna tell the slave master? Oh no, she ain't no good. She lazy. She ain't worth nothing. She ain't deserving to be with that man. Survival. But somehow, remember generationally, it just trickles down. I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but just keep that in your pocket when we talk about generational trauma and things like that, and we're homegrown people, or someone's looking at your child a certain way and you're trying to protect them. It's real, but like I said, it trickles down. But we only can teach what we know. It's just like 17 to 21, I count these young adult years because stuff pops off. We go to college, we leave the house, you know, shit gets wild. So that, let's see. In what areas of your life are you most responsible, least responsible? Are your interpersonal needs being met? So we're going back to our needs being met. Everything is every situation that's negative is an unmet need. If the need was met, you wouldn't feel the way about it that you feel. And then think about your goals. One of the things I think they need in college is like you need some credits to just get me in order, to teach me how to study, to teach me how can I balance life? How can I go to the party and study and do what I need to do? And then how can I make sure I experience what I lack? How can I make sure I experience what I lacked in childhood? This is gonna help you answer what your lack was and what you need to do. So think about like, how do I want to experience not life now? Somebody said peace. Well, guess what? I'm just gonna assume you ain't had no peace in your life. I want to feel worthy. Nobody told you you were worthy or deserving. I want to feel like I'm enough. No one told you that. In fact, what they did tell you is everything you did was not enough and you didn't wash the dishes the right way. You didn't dry them the right way, you know, kind of the way that I talk to my dishwasher. We talked about tapping and I showed you that. These are just other modalities, right? Yoga and mindful movement. Yoga to me is a spiritual practice. Yoga to a lot of people is a spiritual practice. So I know that this is not going to be for everybody, but there are certain poses. You can choose whatever pose you want to choose. I usually choose child's pose because it makes the most sense. And when I get into child's pose, I don't know what I did there. When I get into child's pose, I start to interact with my inner child. I go to a moment where she was stressed and I support her. I'm a resource to her. I go in there and she's laying on the bed crying by herself and I just rub her back and I just affirm her and I just love her and I let her know it's okay to cry. And eventually that memory, and not even eventually because this is my story, the memory is there, but not the emotion. I'm not fucked up by that anymore. I feel good about life. I am important. I'm enough because I went back and did what I needed to do to be a little fairy in my own life. All right, so conscious parenting I got two calls to action. One is take on this role to be a conscious parent. I didn't say gentle. I'm not gonna be gentle all the time. You got about 3 gentles out of me before I turn into something else, right? I'm still working on that. It's still working through me, right? But I'm conscious. I'm connecting the dots. I know what it takes to mess up a child. I don't wanna do that. And I don't want anybody else to do that because now my kids got to be raised with y'all kids and I need all of us to work it out. I need all of us to work together. We're stronger together. Conscious parenting. So I didn't put it on here and I don't know if I have time, but I wrote something. But nonetheless, conscious parenting, like I said, is connecting those dots and thinking about when I say this, am I adding value to my child? Am I adding value to myself? A lot of us are very critical of ourselves because we haven't released that voice. So the conscious part is thinking about it. Pausing. The pause takes time. I'm gonna snap about 15 more times before I be like, oh, you know what? I forgot I was supposed to pause. I honor that. This 40 years of nonsense. I'm trying to unpeel the layers. So that's what conscious parenting is to me, is treating your child with respect and giving your child what you needed. Plus, the modalities for conscious parenting, and you can go take a picture of this, learn parenting styles, do some shadow work, tap into your boundaries, honor your boundaries, teach your children boundaries so they have boundaries. Excuse me. Nonviolent Communication, that's a book. I recommend it to everybody. What it does is it teaches you how to distinguish your thoughts and your feelings and how to have a conversation to get what you want and not in a manipulative way. Remember, I'm a responder. Hey, ooh, that hurt my foot. Would you mind picking these up, baby? Thank you. And then the attachment styles, you will hear like attachment parenting. We did that. I kind of recommend it, but they still get in the bed with us. It's a hot mess. They're just really close and attached, but I want that, but not too much. Like I need you to back up a little bit. And then I meant to bring book. I did. I brought books and left them in the trunk, and I didn't have time to go get them. Let's see. The other call to action, find a trauma-informed therapist that specializes in complex trauma and these attachment styles, and they know about developmental trauma. They know about these things. You'd be surprised that people don't. They'll talk about it, but they don't really know how that death part of it, that epigenetics part, that generational trauma, or they know about it and they don't believe it. They don't believe it's true. Remember tapping into your childhood. Schedule times to take a nap. Y'all do too much. Y'all at a conference. Y'all do too much. Take some time. Your worth is not in your productivity. Unless that's your thing. I don't know. Maybe it is. And you like stress. But then I'll be you're addicted to stress. So take a nap. Wander aimlessly. I'm always in the forest, just wandering around and looking at things and taking pictures. Do a craft, read a favorite story. And then I say, check in with your basic physiological needs. I mentioned this, I didn't say halt, but am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Okay, these are some references from the slide so that I wouldn't get sued. I don't know if that's a thing or like a cease to desist or something. So I wanted to make sure I added this. You can take a picture of this and you can find some of these books. The eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is something she brought up, which is EMDR. I don't know if they're gonna like the way that I say this, but I think EMDR is like this new age, like you're getting very sleepy. That's not what's happening, right? It just gives me that vibe. But EMDR is when you see those therapists doing like this, follow my finger, but it's kind of fast. You can tap, you can do, you can tap on the leg. There's a little eye dot. If you really are seeking therapy and you want to do some trauma stuff, EMDR. See if you're there. Ask questions. You're not stuck with the therapist that you get. Are you EMDR trained? Can you do for me what I need you to do for me? Are you going to help me with my inner child? 5 love language. Get into it. It's Valentine's month. Get into it. Not month, but day. It's Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. But Valentine's Day is coming up. Learn love languages. These are some resources. Like I said, the tapping solution, folks. A ton of resources, a ton of meditations, videos that'll get all into tapping. Okay. Let's connect. Follow, like, subscribe. Just kidding. I don't have a YouTube. But this is my personal one, Roll Rants and Raves. This is my work one, Flourish Sanctuary Counseling and Coaching. But that's the Instagram. You can email me if you have any questions. Give me 24 hours to respond. And then that's the website, and that's where you can find me. Yeah, I think. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Answer session. Does anyone have any questions for Ro?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, we're gonna,
One moment.
thank you for your patience.
I was just wondering if HALT was an acronym for something else.
She said it.
Hungry,
That's what I thought.
angry, lonely, and tired.
Uh-huh.
So checking in with yourself. But I also use that for my children, which I know that they're gonna be traumatized in some way, because anytime they're like cutting up, I'm like, are you hungry? Did you eat today? So I know that somewhere down the line, they might need therapy. Yes, or we have someone.
Earlier, you had said something about the feeling wheel, and it was like, in order to something, you have to be able to Name the feeling.
Name it to tame it.
Name it.
You name your feeling so that you can tame your feeling. If your mind doesn't know what's going on, it just knows that it's feeling something, it's shit's about to go down because it just doesn't have an idea. But when you're like, I'm feeling depressed. Oh yeah, I am feeling depressed. Damn. Will the thought come back up? Maybe, but that's a way to decrease that thought from coming back up because you've named it. Yes.
So where would a sense of feeling the need to be in control come from as far as a childhood trauma?
What age? Or
I don't know.
the need where you lacked control? Where were you not allowed to have control in your life?
When I was molested.
You had no control over that. That's not, I wouldn't say like a trigger, but that would be your area you would start. And so you've held on to that because that's rough. You didn't have control over that. That's not on you. That's your transgressor, right? So now that you are aware of that, that's where I would start some of my work on, because that's the point where you're feeling that lack, other than like whatever else is going on. So I always tell people I'm a co-healer. I'm not saying I'm a healer in the sense like, so I'm magical. I mean, I might be, I don't know, but co-healing, I'm usually trying to ask the best questions to get you to answer your stuff. You have the answer.
Hi, my question is, where can I find resources to help me tell my child difficult things in not a traumatic way? I feel like when I do want to call attention to a behavior that I'm not happy with, I get short and cold, which I'm sure comes from my traumatized child, but I would like to break that cycle.
Well, can you give me an example of like what? Don't give me something you can give me whatever. Give me an example.
So, okay, and I'm sorry, this is probably TMI. So I have a 7-year-old boy.
Okay.
And I am extremely tired of washing poopy underwear. So I want to tell him to wipe better, but I don't want to make him feel ashamed.
Sing it. I mean, be playful about it. If there's a book about it, you can get on YouTube. There's stuff on YouTube. Watch it first. But the conversation will be about hygiene. Hey, baby, we're going to talk about hygiene. We're not just going to talk about boo-boo, right? We're going to talk about the importance of brushing our teeth and making sure that we're wiping our rear end so that we don't get an infection. That can hurt. It can itch, right? So it's breaking it down. And I'm telling you, kids understand. I read the Magic School Bus. The Magic School Bus is teaching me stuff about bacteria and stuff, right? I'm like, which one fights off the infection? They're like, white blood cells, right? They get it. And you can try. That would be my recommendation, to try that. As far as a resource, YouTube. I mean, I try to monitor all the things on YouTube. I don't know a book off the top of my hand, but really tapping into hygiene.
Thank you.
I hope that supports. Hold on, I'm sorry. Just thank you for being patient. They want you to have the mic.
Got people online.
I think that was a good example. I'm going through that with my 6-year-old young grandson. And his first, we started 5, and he didn't want to do that.
I mean, honestly though,
no, he didn't want.
It's not a good look.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So we're teaching and encouraging and letting him know you can do it,
Well, I guess I would wonder, I would acknowledge and validate that's shitty.
No,
honestly, like you gotta wipe it. Some people look at it. I mean,
but that's what it was. It was like,
edit that.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah, and I get that. So I would acknowledge and validate. Why don't you want to touch it? Well, it's gross, it's disgusting. Oh, I get that. Well, if you don't wipe it, it's just going to be sitting on your bum, and that's even more gross and disgusting.
Well, that's what he has experienced, that when it sits there, it's uncomfortable to him. So he realizes he has to do something, so he's doing it.
So he's doing it, and you have encouraged and empowered him. Time is up. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to remind everyone to please complete the survey. Thank you again, Miss Ashley Rochelle Jones, for sharing your knowledge and your insight with us. She has cards and brochures